Hello guys, Crispy, welcome back to another video and to another year, because this is my first video of the year. I hope you guys had a wonderful New Year's Eve. So today, my friends, I'm going to be testing my new RX 570. This one is the Gigabyte M1 or MI Gaming. I think that's an M1, but I'm not sure about that. And we are running a Ryzen 7 3700X, 8 cores, 16 threads of course, 16 gigs of RAM, 3200 MHz, kind of overkill for the RX 570, but you guys should expect pretty similar performance with like an i5 6600K here in Rust. As you can see over here, I overclocked this GPU by a little bit. It's running at 1320 MHz on the core, and I am recording with the Radeon Relief from AMD. I'm not recording with a capture card because I only saw a 1 to 3 FPS drop while I was recording, so I was getting like 121 FPS when I was not recording, and then I hit record and it dropped to 118, so that's pretty much negligible, and the overclock more than makes up for it. So yeah, that said, let's get into the game, shall we? Here we go, guys. We are in Rust. We are now CPU bottlenecked because Rust is not a very well optimized game, and I am in a desert, as you can probably tell, you know. So this is kind of not the most demanding area of the map, but I'm gonna grab that horse over there and hopefully get to somewhere a little bit more dense, you know, with more trees and stuff like that, which is very intensive here in Rust. We can see that the game stutters quite a little bit here. It's installed on an SSD, and there is no like memory limitations, so that's just how the game behaves, I guess. And let's get into the horse. By the way, I'm gonna show you all of these settings. We're gonna be playing at 1080p. I'm gonna be testing it at low, medium, high, and ultra settings, as I did with my previous GPUs, aside from the 1030 and 710. And these are the lowest settings in the game for now. I'm gonna start off by playing like this. Minimum settings, 1080p, and I got actually killed by a boar last time, you know, not in the last video, but when I spawned into the server I was dead because of a boar. So yeah, I don't really like boars right now, so I'm sorry, but you killed me, so that's just revenge, you know. I have nothing against boars, but that one. Let's just get into another area. I'm gonna start counting our FPS averages in 1% lows anyways, because, well, this is gameplay anyway. So as I told you already, with an i5 6600K you'd get pretty similar FPS to these, because single core performance matters a lot. Of course, you still might need to overclock that 6600K to achieve these frame rates, but the game doesn't really utilize a lot of cores. It's like runs in like 4 threads, I think. We're getting like 20 to 25% CPU usage, so that means that it's only running in 4 threads. And yeah, our GPU usage is quite low, but you know, that's to be expected from a game like Rust that doesn't really run too well on anything. That's just a game problem. Oh my gosh, I really get astonished every time I look at these shadows and these trees. It looks amazing on low. It's good, it's a good thing, because that means that the 710, for example, was actually able to play this game fine even at 720p. So it's good that the developers allow you to drop the settings to this level. So what the heck? What is that? What did I do? Empseed. Okay then. That's how you harvest right now, guys. Okay, so that's probably pretty much it for low settings. We are seeing a CPU bottleneck here, with the GPU usage ranging from 70 to 90% most of the time. We got a 106 FPS on average, 64 FPS 1% low. So if you want to experience Rust like this for some reason, you can definitely use an RX 570 to do that. Right now, let's do medium settings, which is graphical quality on 3, and it didn't crash, so that's good. I'm actually kind of interested in seeing how much RAM and VRAM this game will eat at medium, high, or ultra settings, because I do have 8 gigs of VRAM here on this RX 570. Alright guys, so these are the medium settings that I chose here. Everything off here, these two enabled, and everything here slightly to the left of the middle of the sliders, you know. So yeah, the game looks a lot better like this, as you can see. see. And now our GPU usage is pegged at 99%, which is also good to see. That's what you want in games usually. Okay, let's just take a little stroll here around the tree area, the forest areas, see our minimum FPS over here. Of course, in the desert areas or in the snow areas, you will get more FPS than what you're seeing right now in the screen, or even in city areas like that, but I'm not gonna go there because of the radiation. Oh, Jesus Christ, I don't want those guys. I once got killed by one of those, and it wasn't pretty, so I'm not gonna shoot him again or anything, or even approach him. So let's go, let's move here. Oh, there's another, yeah, boar over there. Alright guys, let's get to that forest over there and see our FPS there. So it's good to see that the RX 570 is still very, very good here for 60 plus FPS, and that even the 4GB model will perform like this, because we are not really using more than 4 gigs of VRAM here. We're only using 3.3 gigabytes of VRAM, so I thought we would be using more than that, to be honest, here in Rust, because, well, it's Rust, it's not really well optimized, but it seems like you only need a 4 gig card to run this game at these settings at least. But of course, on ultra settings or high settings, it will get demanding and our FPS will probably drop from 60, but so far so good. If you want to buy a card like this, an RX 570, RX 580 for example, 4 or 8 gig card, it will do a fantastic job here in Rust, as you can see, and the game looks pretty enough, and it's very enjoyable with these graphics in my opinion. I have like over 150 hours in Rust. Of course, it was like 4 or 5 years ago when I put that many hours into it. Like lately, I've only been testing it for the benchmarks and playing it for the benchmarks. Medium settings runs pretty well here, even on a forest area. No problems whatsoever for the little RX 570. So this GPU is actually amazing, guys. I love this GPU for its price point, for its performance. It's just really, really great, and you don't need that beefy of a power supply to run it. You only need like a 450 watt power supply. You don't need a 600 watt, 650 watt like many people say you do. Yeah, keep that in mind. You know, a 450 watt good quality power supply will run this card absolutely fine, even overclocked. 64 FPS, 1% lows, 80 FPS average, no stuttering whatsoever here on medium, so I would prefer to play like this, smoothness wise, you know, even like you don't need 100 plus FPS to play this game. Of course, 60 is about all you need, or even like 40. I think I used to play with 40 FPS absolutely fine and didn't have a problem with it. Let me just hide here. I think there's a chopper coming. Seeing a 60 plus FPS experience here with the RX 570 with 80 FPS average is absolutely fantastic for a card like this that only costs like 120, 130 bucks for the 4GB variant, of course. Now increasing the graphics to high. These are the high settings, guys. Let's do this. Now we are seeing our FPS dropping below 60, as I told you. I was expecting this, and you know, I think the best compromise is actually medium settings. I don't feel like you need to drop your FPS this much to have a decent graphical experience, you know. Medium settings looks just fine. Of course, high settings looks a lot better than medium, but I just wouldn't trade off those sweet 60 FPS for around 50 FPS average, which is what we are getting here so far on high settings. Of course, dropping a few settings here and there would probably put you on a 60 FPS average, because there's still a room for improvement between medium and high settings. We are still seeing FPS above 60 FPS, of course, in a few areas, but in the areas that I tested in, which are the forest areas, we can see that those are quite demanding here, so it drops even to the high 40s sometimes, and that's why I tested there. So yeah, keep that in mind. You can play at 60 plus FPS outside of forest areas in Rust with the RX 570, but once you get to those forests, oh my gosh, once you get to those forests, you can see that we're dropping into the 50s, low 50s, high 40s. It's not too bad, don't get me wrong, it's still an enjoyable experience, but you know, if I was choosing from like low with 80 FPS or 60 plus FPS all of the time to medium with like 45 plus FPS all of the time, I would probably choose medium because the difference in graphical quality is absolutely insane. But between medium and high, I would probably choose to play on medium, especially if you are like a competitive player, if that exists here in Rust. I'm not too sure about that, to be honest, but well, at least, guys, we are still seeing an average of 60 FPS so far, so that's pretty damn good. I was expecting a little bit lower than that, to be honest. So, yeah, the game looks pretty average of 60. If you have a 60 Hz monitor, honestly, I don't see any problem with playing like this. If you want that bit of visual fidelity better than medium, those are just my 2 cents. I prefer a very, very smooth experience to that little bit of better graphics. So, that's just me. You choose whatever you want. That's why I test so many settings here. So yeah, so far high settings, really damn impressive for this little card. Rust is a very unoptimized game, but it's running absolutely fine here. Our VRAM is being utilized by a little bit here, 6 GB. So if you have the 4 GB variant of this GPU, you will probably be seeing the RAM usage going up to like 12 GB or something like that. Let's just do highest settings here just for fun. I don't think you should do this, to be honest. There's not much of a graphical improvement over high settings on ultra, you know. I am gonna enable this one, and I'm not gonna enable these 3 because I don't like the effects, but I'm gonna do SMAA here, anti-aliasing, and these, of course, I'm gonna turn those off because those are experimental settings after all. So okay, now we are seeing it dropping a lot here. It's kind of the same as the GTX 1650 Super, I think. I think the 1650 Super got like a 40 FPS average. Maybe this one is a little bit worse right now because we are seeing it into the 30s, and maybe it will drop from 30. I'm not too sure yet, but maybe not actually. The 1% lows are at 29. I didn't really see 29, but maybe it did drop to 29, so I don't know. But 29 is still okay. Of course, if you are watching the video closely, you're probably seeing that there isn't that much of a difference in the graphics compared to high settings, but of course our averages are now 20 FPS lower than high settings, so I don't really recommend ultra settings in almost any game, to be honest, because ultra settings are such performance hogs compared to high, and they don't really provide with that big of a visual difference. And especially when you are playing the game and not licking walls and watching for the textures and reflections and all of that stuff, you're definitely not gonna notice in a lot of games at least the difference between high and ultra. So in most games, high settings is what I recommend, and the RX 570 here in 2020. Of course, there aren't 2020 games yet that have released, but I think this GPU should be able to do like medium settings, 60 plus FPS in 2020 releases, at least in games that are well optimized. And here in Rust, well, 2020 Rust is still looking good and running well on this little GPU. Even on ultra settings, we didn't drop from 30, so if you want a 30 FPS experience, this is all you need. Well, that's it, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the video and this look at the RX 570 playing Rust. I am gonna go ahead and die, probably, because the chopper's right there, and my horse got stuck, so... But I'll see you in the next one. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and if you enjoyed the video, of course. Have a wonderful year. Hopefully, you'll watch plenty of my videos, because I'm gonna be uploading a ton of them this year again, and all of them, or almost all of them, with voice commentary, which is something that I didn't really do throughout 2019. I only started talking in my videos back in like September or October of 2019, and we've grown so much since then. It's amazing. So yeah, thanks so much for everything, guys. Love you all. Bye bye.